Hey there, super friends. This is Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Monday, February 12th, 2018. If you want to connect with us on social media, you can subscribe to our Last Point Gaming YouTube channel. You can friend up our Last Point Gaming Facebook account. You can follow us on Twitter at Last Point Gaming. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Stranger Sparrow, or you can always reach out directly with an email to lastpointgaming@gmail.com. Today would usually be the weekend gaming report. But, let's talk about the ban and restricted updates. And then if we have time at the end, I'll get into the gaming report bullshit. Spoiler, there wasn't much gaming this weekend, so. But also, other exciting news. Fucking Boggles won a GP. You go, dude. You get there. When I first started looking at Modern, I ended up going with Tron because of my early, the nostalgia of my early obsession with Urza, trying to find Urza. But one of the decks that I like the idea of, even after building my watered down Watermelon Tron deck, that was a red-green Tron deck. Kiwi was black-green. I was experimenting with that too. Anyway, I came across Boggles and I was like, oh my god, that deck looks like so much fun, and everybody's like, don't fucking build it, it's gonna be a giant waste of your money, it's not competitive, it's not tier, and it won a fucking GP. Hells yeah. But most exciting news of the day, updates to the ban and restricted list. No new bans in Standard. That's good. I think Standard's doing okay, especially considering there hasn't been a major competitive event for Standard since the shakeup. So I think shaking up that format anymore at this point is probably a bad call. No unbans, apparently, and I can admit I was wrong here. My concerns about their banning of Rampaging Ferocidon seem to have been completely misplaced, as you're not really seeing tokens take over the format. In fact, still seeing red at the top of the format. So, okay. Ferocidon's alright. But what happened in Modern? Were there new bans like everybody was begging for after Lantern won the Pro Tour? No. There were unbans. The Boogeyman himself got unbanned. Jace is having a temporary parole situation right now. And I say this because I am relatively certain he's going to get clipped with the Manhammer again. They also unbanned Bloodbraid Elf, which I have zero concept of how it ever affected Modern, because previous to that banning, I had never interacted with Bloodbraid Elf and have not to this point. Jace, however, I remember playing against the Mind Sculptor. I don't know if it was a casual thing with my friends, or it was before I started going to F&M, I played against my buddy's deck with it. I don't remember how, but I've played against Jace the Mind Sculptor in a casual setting, and it still sucked ass. That card's such a bitch. So, the main argument I'm seeing, because this is getting people impassioned on both sides, there are enough of people like me going, what the actual fuck, WotC? Why? Why did you think this was a good idea? And then there are plenty of people on the other side going, oh my god, crybaby, stop. It's gonna be fine. And then you have the control players that are like, look, I don't care if it's gonna be fine or not. I'm just fucking excited. I'm gonna play that bastard as long as I can. I'm really trying to be happy for the control players. I'm just, desperately failing at it. Because, oh god, I don't want to deal with this card. So let's, I'm going to say look at this objectively, but understand it's not going to be that objective. Because, this is my bias and everything. Jace is still played in Legacy. I guess not as much since the Miracles deck got banned. well, something in the Miracles deck got banned to, like, completely nerf it. But I have seen, there's been at least one deck played on the SCG versus series, either in Legacy or Vintage, where somebody was playing Jace. Plus, they did do the no ban list Modern versus video a couple weeks back. And I want to say it was Todd Anderson playing Twin Blade. I could be wrong there. It could have been Todd Stevens, or it could have even been Brad Nelson. Right now, I'm just going through the names of players through SCG that I associate with a deck like that I think could play it well. And no offense to any of the SCG players I didn't list. These are just the 3 players I know the best who play combo or control strategies. But like 95% had to be one of those 3. And yeah, just seeing that in action. Now, Twin Blade also gave them access to 2 other banned cards. And I could be, in fact, way off. It could be the other deck had Jace in it, and Twin Blade just had Stoneforge Mystic and Splinter Twin. But I feel like it was Jeskai colored Twin Blade with Jace, Stoneforge Mystic, and Splitter Twin. Anyway, I mean, this card's kind of nuts. So, but let's look at this. Point 1 to why this shouldn't be a problem. Well, it costs 4 mana, right? So, nobody's going to invest that. Celestial Colonnade costs like 5 to activate or some trash like that and dies to a goddamn Fatal Push. Cryptic Command costs 4 mana. Now, granted, Cryptic Command, because you get to pick 2 modes, as opposed to Jace, you only get 1 activation the turn you play him. I can definitely see an argument for why Cryptic Command is slightly better, but it's not like oh yeah, this one blue deck plays Cryptic Command. Pretty much all, maybe I'm wrong there. I could be. But, so we'll just move on from that. Yeah. 4 mana in Modern is okay. It starts that arc of cards that it's like, well, you gotta be damn good to be worth it. Spoiler, Jace is. The other thing is, Jace is also blue. And with blue, these rules of engagement as far as mana costs, there's a lot more leeway there because blue has the ability to control that early game and ensure that it hits all of its land drops. Between, like, draw/scry spells and counter spells. Also, blue is usually either paired with black or white. Which gives it access, or even red, which gives it access to other early game removal spells as well. So blue gets to play at the higher end of the curve because of its control nature and because it has the deck manipulation tools to ensure that it hits its land drops. So I feel like the argument of, well, he's 4 mana and nobody plays 4 mana spells in Modern is not so much. I mean, fuck, Nahiri still sees play in Modern. Chandra started seeing play in Modern there for a while. Goddamn Hazoret's in Modern. So, I feel like your argument there is null. Now let's look at what Jace actually does. So, for 2 and 2 blue, he comes out with 3 loyalty counters on him. No, I don't know what the cost of his ultimate is. I want to say it's like 7 or something like that. That it doesn't seem like you need to keep him alive that long. Focus. Oh god, I'm sorry guys. This is probably going to be on par with the quality of a morning cast because I'm just straight up exhausted. It's probably not going to be much better tomorrow either. But I'm going to try to power through this. Anyway, so his plus ability, I think it's +1. might be +2 though. I feel like he's one of those planeswalkers that, like, if you let him resolve, the next thing you know, he's ready to ult. But it's +1 or 2. And that ability, I am 95% sure, I could have the abilities and costs mixed up, but I think that's the one where you get to look at the top card of target player's deck and choose to leave it on top or put it on the bottom. So you get to manipulate your opponent's draw step. Now, if you're bottoming the good card, there's still a certain amount of luck involved that the next card down isn't also a good card. His 0 ability is to brainstorm. And if you're not familiar with what brainstorm is, brainstorm is not legal in Modern, but it's 1 blue to draw 3, put 2 back on top of your library. So paying 4 for a brainstorm seems like a lot, but again, this is one of those things where you can stage this in such a way that you have an easier time protecting him than most decks have for protecting their planeswalkers. You know, this is why Saheeli Cat got out of control in Standard. It wasn't just the combo, it was the fact that it fit into a control shell, therefore protecting that combo became so much easier. Anyway, moving right along. -1 or 2, again, not 100% sure there, I think is return target creature to its owner's hand. Perhaps target non-land permanent. Probably should have looked this card up. And then -something is his ultimate is exile target opponent's library, they shuffle their hand, and their hand becomes their library. Which, because of his expense, is actually even more concerning. Because generally, by the point in the game you even get him on the board, your opponent has, like, really got to make some decisions on, do they think they can take care of him in time, or do they need to hoard cards in their hand? But ultimately, it doesn't matter. If you're hoarding these cards in your hand, they're probably shitty cards. Therefore, having that hand become your library ain't gonna save you. Yeah, that's the big problem with Jace, is he forms this lock. Now, Jace was banned... okay, I think I need to merge. Fucking awesome. Oh, and you're, for realsies, can you get out of my way? Yeah, turn a little faster, thank you. Focus. Oh, at the point in which Jace was banned was under the old Planeswalker rules. Was that under the old Legendary rule? I'm trying to remember. So the old Planeswalker rule being, of course, that you could only have one Planeswalker of a given name at a time on the battlefield. Before even that rule, there was the old Legendary rule, where if your opponent had a Legendary permanent in the battlefield, are you turning right? If you're turning right, you can go. Actually, I guess if you're turning left, you can go too. Okay. So if your opponent has their Jace the Mind Sculptor out, and you play your Jace Cunning Castaway, both are sent to the graveyard because it caused a legendary conflict. Legendary used to apply to the entire battlefield, not just each player separately. What the fuck is even happening? God, I hate traffic. Luckily, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, ugh. There's, like, not enough room in these streets to get traffic diverted around incidents and shit, so you gotta, like, sit until they get it at least shuffled off to one lane, and it's just such a pain in the ass. Anyway. So, I believe at the point that he was banned, that was still a rule. So you still had that option to try to kill him. Now, he was also banned before cards like Vraska's Contempt, Anguished Unmaking, Hero's Downfall, the bad Hero's Downfall, Ruinous Path, I think. That's what I want to say it was. What else is there now? That, Cast Out can hit him. Ixalan's Binding. Does anybody play that in Modern? Maybe people should. Card's good. So, is it Dreadbore, though, can destroy Planeswalker? So there are more answers to Planeswalkers now than there were before, but again, that's kind of failing to take into consideration that Jace is blue. Therefore, any deck he goes in is going to be heavily based in blue. We're not even talking like splash blue because he's double blue. What the fuck is going on? As a rule of thumb, I let cops go when they try to impede my path. Yeah, I don't know what that was all about. I don't want to know, but I'm sure I'm going to find out. It wasn't even an accident. There were just a billion cop cars. I don't know. Oh, Harrisburg, you crazy. Anyway, catching up here. So, the thing with Jace is the vast majority of players are not going to slam him on turn 4. Unless you have the game locked down in some other way. They're not going to put him out until they can protect him. But that's the thing about control decks, is they spin out the game. So, this concept of, oh, well, he's 4 mana, and in Modern, game's over on turn 3. Game is rarely over on turn 3, and it requires like an insane opener from one side of the table and the other side to kind of have a more mediocre opening that they can't impede it. Back when I was trying to play me some Naya Revolt Zoo, I talked about when you got the God draw, like the actual perfect draw, yeah, you could win the game. I think in that case, you could actually win the game on turn 2. Turn 2. Because you do 14 points of damage on turn 0, your turn 1, before your opponent has even gotten to play a land. You still have, let's see here, to get to the 14, you have the Reckless Bushwhacker. Oh, yeah, and all your Burning Tree Emissaries / Hidden Herbalists. Which, was it? The perfect draw was fetch land, 4 cards that were at least 1 Burning Tree Emissary, and the other 3 could either be Hidden Herbalists or Burning Tree Emissaries, Simian Spirit Guide, and Reckless Bushwhacker. That was the ideal draw. So, you go off, you hit them for 14? Yeah. 14 on turn 0. You have 5 creatures on the battlefield. They get to play a land. The maximum amount of creatures they are going to be able to impede from dealing them damage is 1. Because they're either going to play a Path to Exile or they're going to play a blocker or a Fatal Push. Just 1 kill spell to hit 1 thing. There's no board wipe for 1. With the exception of a deck like Affinity that can somehow vomit out just a shit ton of cards on turn 0 as well. So with the exception of the other just really sporadic possible completely broken opening hands decks. Against your average deck, yeah, they're going to be able to kill 1 thing or play 1 blocker. You have 5 creatures, they have 6 life points, all of your creatures are 2 power. So taking out 1 means they're still taking 8 damage. Or mitigating 1 in some fashion means they're still taking 8 damage. So, but the chances of that hand happening is insanely limited. I didn't even get the God draw once. I got the almost God draw where I got to, like on my turn 0, I got the Simian Spirit Guide, I got the Bushwhacker, and I got like 2 Burning Tree Emissaries. So I got to swing in for 8 on turn 0, and that was exciting. But by and large, you're not getting that kind of start. Even with Affinity, where, yeah, sometimes it gets that hand where it can just vomit all its permanents out onto the battlefield, and it puts you on such a clock that even by turn 3, when you've cast your Anger of the Gods and are able to kill some things, it's not enough to save you. But by and large, not very modern decks can pull off those kinds of starts. I guess generally when you're gold fishing, you want to, part of mapping out a deck is you want to make sure that in a perfect draw scenario you could kill your opponent by turn 3. But this assumption that the game only goes 3 turns, I don't know where it comes from, but it's flawed. So the fact that he's 4 mana for what he does is kind of insane. Then again, when you consider the fact that he goes into a control shell, yeah, this is going to be crazy. I think he was banned for a very good reason. I do think he was too powerful. If his effects were similar, but he was any other color, this might be a little more balanced, though his effects wouldn't be what they are in any other color. This is kind of how blue works. Blue's a jerk color. But the fact that everybody playing him is already firmly in blue, giving them access to a plethora of counterspells and other control style spells for mill and deck manipulation and all that kind of shit. Like, I think people are heavily discounting the effect he's going to have on the modern format. So, I'm kind of of 2 minds here, because it's already been spoiled based on the box art that Jace is going to be reprinted in Masters 25. There are many people that believe that this is the reason he's being unbanned now, to amp sales of Masters 25. And if you listen to Rudy over on Alpha Investments, as I've said before, I don't listen to the actual content of what he's saying most of the time. I just like listen to the guy. I find him just totally amusing and kind of exciting to listen to. But he did do a bit a while back, and this is something husband and I talked about, which is why it sticks out in my head, that I can't recall if there were rumors or he maybe kind of sort of knows somebody who knows something who may have heard something, or if it was like his own conclusions he was coming to based on things WotC's been doing. But he brought up the idea that Hasbro may be trying to liquidate WotC. Which, if this is the case, this makes perfect sense. Because Jace being in Masters 25 and now unbanned in Modern. Now, I don't remember when exactly Masters 25 comes out. I want to say it's in April. Might be in March. It's before another banned and restricted announcement, I believe, which is why they had to pull the trigger now. Because, one, copies already running around out there have already spiked. So a fair amount of players that are super jazzed to play with them, either because they did before or because it's this new experience for them and they love blue, because they're that kind of player. I'm looking at you, Jolt. Jolt from MTGO Traders is very happy Control player. They're likely going to wait for the Masters 25 reprint and buy a shit ton of product trying to open them. Even players that say don't want to play with him, this is going to increase sales of Masters 25. I would say that I feel it's an 85% certainty that Bloodbraid Elf is also going to be in Masters 25. That this unbanning announcement is them quietly saying it's in that set. Because this will drive more sales of that set, since the older copies are going to quickly get pushed out of affordable price range, which increasing the sales increases their bottom line, which makes it look like a healthier company to sell. I'm not saying WotC is not a healthy company, but when you're preparing to liquidate an asset, you either do it when it's at the top of its value naturally, or if you have the ability to somehow manipulate its value and give it a higher value in a short-term way to make it look shinier and more appealing to those who you would like to buy it from you, this is what you do. Now, this, of course, if this was their trajectory, means that they knew this was coming when they announced, or when they built the Masters 25 set. The other less likely, but I find far more funny, and therefore this is what I'm going with, reason that they're doing this, because they're tired of whining Magic players. Lantern Control won the Pro Tour. Suddenly everybody starts screaming, oh my god, they need to ban something in Lantern. Lantern Control is a really hard deck to play well. When that deck first showed up, people laughed at it. They're like, this is a bunch of draft cards. These are cards that people leave laying on the table at the end of a limited event because it's not worth their time to pick them up. This is a bunch of bullshit shit cards that somehow comes together in this way. But it's one of those controls, or one of those decks, that every decision you make matters. It's going to ripple out and it's going to alter the landscape of the game. It's not a deck that even I think any Control player can just pick up and be like, yeah, I got this. Which is probably part of the reason that Boggles won the GP. Because one of two things likely happened here. Either everybody altered their game plan to make sure that they could combat Lantern Control at their highest potential, and or you had a bunch of rookie pilots running around with Lantern Control thinking that watching it on coverage made it look easy. And I'm not trying to bash on anybody there. Man, the amount of times I have debated whether I wanted to try to play Storm because Caleb Shear makes it look so fucking easy to play, when really Caleb has to go through every single decision he makes. I enjoy watching the guy though. So when I hear he's on coverage, I'm like, yeah, I'll go check that out. He's playing Storm, and I'm like, yeah, no, this deck pretty much plays itself, right? No, that's not how that deck works at all. You know, it's a really complex deck that I don't know why people think... Well, no, I do know. Because you watch these players always seem to have what they need, or get what they need. You know, you're like, oh, look, they scried to the bottom and then they got something better. So clearly, you know, when you opt, you always put that card on the bottom. Maybe not. Because you're watching tournament coverage and you're not getting that feedback, I really need to start tuning into Caleb's streams. When you're watching the live coverage and you're not getting that feedback and you're not hearing their process, and they make these snap decisions because they've played the matchup enough that they're like, oh no, I know in this matchup this card's garbage, goes on the bottom. What did I get? Oh, okay, this is better. Gifts ungiven. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to debate it. I'm going to go get these 4 cards very purposefully. It looks like it's all easy decisions to make, and it's just not. It's just, they have that experience. That's why you're watching them in the featured match. I feel like that's the same kind of thing with Lantern Control, is you don't just pick that deck up and go, yeah, I watched it be played a few times. I think I got it. So I think these two factors, either one or the other or both, led to Boggles winning a fucking GP. Because that deck's a glass cannon. Like, Taryn ran it on his stream today, and, even before the stream, he was complaining about it. He was like, all my test matches, this deck ain't doing so well. How the fuck did this win a GP? Well, he didn't say fuck, because he's Taryn. He's all family friendly. He's like, how does this deck win the GP? It's not a great deck. It just happened to be well positioned in that meta. Same reason Collins Mullen did not lose a game when he debuted Vile Humans. Because nobody knew what to do. Nobody was prepared for this deck. So I like to think that with everybody going, oh my god, ban Lantern, Watsy's like, oh, you want to see oppressive control? Yeah? You think Lantern's oppressive? Here. Now you got Jace. Deal with that shit. Good luck. But again, the far more likely thing is either that they knew they were reprinting it in Masters 25 and legitimately believe somehow that it's not as broken as it used to be, or they're trying to amp the Masters 25 sales to make the company, the subsidiary, look like a much more valuable asset so that they can liquidate it for the highest dollar. I don't know, though. I'm interested to see Rudy's thoughts on this one. This may be one of those few videos of his I actually pay attention to the content when he covers this. But I'm home now. I really gotta go. As always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.